What if one mistake changed everything? Not a small mistake. Not a forgotten password or a wrong turn on the highway. A mistake so simple, so ordinary, that nobody would ever think twice about it. He sat at the wrong table. That is it. That is all he did. But what happened next, nobody predicted. Nobody planned for it. And nobody, not even him, fully understood it until it was too late to go back. In this story, you are going to discover 3 things that will completely blow your mind. First, you will find out how one poor mechanic ended up face to face with the most powerful girl in the entire galaxy. Second, you will learn the secret she had been hiding from everyone, even her own father, the Emperor. And third, you will see how one ordinary human being from Earth became the most talked about person across 1,000 star systems. This is not just a story about luck. This is a story about destiny. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was Caleb Harris. Nobody special. Nobody important. Just a 23-year-old mechanic from a small town in Ohio, USA. He had grease under his fingernails every single day of his life. He woke up early. He worked hard. He went to sleep tired. Then he did it all again the next morning. Caleb did not have big dreams. He did not talk about changing the world. He just wanted to pay his rent, keep his old truck running, and maybe one day save enough money to open his own repair shop. That was it. That was the whole plan. But life had something else in mind for Caleb Harris. It started on a Tuesday. An ordinary, forgettable Tuesday. Caleb had been hired as part of a maintenance crew. A massive interstellar trade station called Vega Prime had recently docked near Earth's orbital ring. Vega Prime was enormous, bigger than most cities. It was a floating world of glass and metal and light, spinning slowly above the clouds. Ships from 50 different civilizations came and went every single hour. Caleb's job was simple. Fix a broken hydraulic compressor in sub-level 9. Go in, do the work, come back out. Easy. Except nothing about that day turned out to be easy. The repair took longer than expected. By the time Caleb finished, it was nearly the end of the station's 3rd shift cycle. He was hungry, exhausted, and completely turned around in the massive maze of corridors. He had walked the wrong way twice already. His communicator had died an hour ago. He had no map and no guide. He just followed the smell of food. That smell led him to a long, wide corridor with tall, glowing doors at the end. He pushed through those doors and found himself inside a grand dining hall. The ceiling was 3 stories high. Crystal light fixtures floated in the air above every table. The floor was polished white stone. Soft music played from somewhere he could not see. Every single person in that room was wearing formal attire. Robes, gowns, ceremonial uniforms from a dozen different worlds. Alien diplomats, high-ranking officers, trade ambassadors, people who mattered. Caleb was wearing a gray, torn hoodie and work boots with oil stains on them. He froze at the entrance. A small silver robot appeared at his side almost immediately. "Welcome, sir," it said in a flat, polite voice. "Your table is ready. Please follow me." Caleb opened his mouth to explain, to say he was lost, to say he did not belong here. But the robot was already moving, weaving through the tables confidently. And Caleb, exhausted and starving and completely disoriented, just followed. The robot stopped at a small round table near the back of the hall. It gestured politely at the chair. Caleb sat down. He picked up the menu, a glowing holographic panel, and stared at it blankly. He could not read half the words. He did not recognize most of the food. He figured he would just point at something and hope for the best. Then he heard the chair across from him move. He looked up. and his entire understanding of the universe shifted in about 3 seconds. Sitting across from him was a girl. Young, maybe his age, maybe a little younger. She had long, silver-white hair that fell perfectly over her shoulders. Her skin had a soft glow to it, pale blue like moonlight on still water. Her eyes were large and luminous, the color of deep space at the edge of a nebula. She was wearing a violet and gold gown that probably cost more than everything Caleb had ever owned in his entire life. She was looking at him with a calm, curious expression. Not angry, not disgusted, just curious. Like she was trying to figure out what exactly he was. Caleb realized, very slowly, that he had just sat down at someone else's reserved table. A very important someone. A someone surrounded by 6 silent guards, standing at perfect attention along the wall behind her. He swallowed hard. "I think," he said quietly, "I am at the wrong table." The girl tilted her head slightly. A tiny smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Yes," she said, in perfect English. "You are." She did not call the guards. She did not stand up and leave. She just looked at him and said, "But sit anyway. I have been waiting for someone interesting to talk to all evening." Caleb did not move for a full 5 seconds. Every single smart instinct in his brain was screaming at him to stand up, apologize, and walk away as fast as his tired legs could carry him. The guards behind the girl had not moved, but he could feel their eyes on him, cold and precise, like targeting systems calculating distance and threat level. He was definitely threat level of some kind. Just probably not the dangerous kind. More like the embarrassing kind. But the girl was still looking at him. Calm, patient, that small smile still sitting at the corner of her mouth, like she found the whole situation quietly amusing. And something about that look made Caleb stay in his seat. He was not sure why. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was hunger. Maybe it was something he could not name yet. He stayed. "I am Caleb," he said. "I am a mechanic. I was fixing something in sub-level 9 and I got completely lost. And I followed the smell of food, and the robot brought me here, and I did not realize this was the wrong table until just now." He said all of that in one breath. The girl blinked once. Then she laughed. Not a loud laugh. A quiet one. Soft and genuine. Like she had not done it in a while and had almost forgotten how. "That," she said, "is the most honest introduction anyone has ever given me." She straightened slightly in her chair. "My name is Lyra." Just Lyra. No title. No family name. No ceremonial announcement. Caleb nodded like that was completely normal. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." They talked. At first it was simple things. Caleb told her about Ohio, about fixing engines and old trucks, about the way the sky looked during a summer storm back home. Lyra listened to every single word with a focus that felt almost intense. Like she was recording it all. Like nothing he said was too small or too boring. That felt strange to Caleb. Usually people's eyes glazed over when he talked about work. Lyra's eyes did the opposite. They got brighter. She asked him questions. Real questions. What did metal smell like when it was hot? What did rain feel like on skin? Was it true that humans slept lying completely flat and unconscious for hours every single night? Caleb laughed at that last one. "Yeah. Every night. Why?" "We do not do that," she said simply. "We enter a meditation state. We remain aware. The idea of complete unconsciousness is," she paused, searching for the word, "terrifying and fascinating." Caleb looked at her more carefully then. The glow of her skinches, the shape of her ears, slightly pointed, the way her eyes caught the light differently depending on the angle. "You are not human," he said. No, she agreed. What are you? She was quiet for a moment. I am Velari, she said. From the Velari Imperium. Third star system past your solar neighbor. Caleb had heard of the Velari Imperium. Everyone on Earth had. It was one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. Billions of star systems. Technologies so advanced they made Earth's best scientists feel like children drawing with crayons. Okay, Caleb said slowly. So what are you doing on a trade station eating dinner alone? The brightness in her eyes dimmed. Just slightly. Just enough for Caleb to notice. Diplomatic formality, she said. The words sounded practiced, like she had said them many times before to end conversations exactly like this one. Caleb was tired enough and hungry enough that he did not have the energy to be polite about it. That sounds like a lie, he said. Lyra stared at him. The guards along the wall shifted. Just barely. Just a centimeter. Caleb wondered briefly if he was about to be removed from the station entirely. Then Lyra's smile came back. Bigger this time. You are very strange. Caleb Harris, she said. I get that a lot, he replied. She leaned forward slightly, and her voice dropped lower. The truth, she said, is that I ran away. Caleb set down his fork. You ran away, he repeated. Yes. From where? She looked at him steadily. From the Imperial Palace. From my father. From the ceremony they have been planning for 6 years. Caleb did not fully understand what any of that meant yet, but he understood the look on her face. He had seen that look before, not on alien royalty, but on people back home, on his friend Marcus, who walked away from a college scholarship because it was his father's dream, not his, on his cousin Dana, who left a perfectly good job in a city she hated to move somewhere that made her feel alive again. That look was not weakness. That look was someone deciding to choose themselves. What ceremony? He asked. Lyra was quiet for a moment. She looked down at her hands on the table. Her fingers were long and slender and completely still, like she had trained herself never to fidget. The binding ceremony, she said. It is a political arrangement. A marriage. Between the Velari Imperium and the Drenthari Collective. My father believes it will secure peace between our civilizations for 1,000 years. And what do you believe? She looked up at him. I believe the Drenthari Collective does not want peace. I believe they want access to our star maps, our military codes, and our trade routes. And once they have those things through this union, peace will be the last thing that follows. Caleb stared at her. Have you told your father this? Many times. And he tells me I am young, that I do not understand politics, that emotions should not interfere with strategy. Her voice was completely flat when she said it. Like she had accepted it. Like she was simply reporting facts with no feeling left behind them. Caleb felt something tighten in his chest. He recognized that too. Being dismissed. Being told your instincts were wrong just because someone older and more powerful said so. So you ran, he said. I came here to think, she corrected quietly. There is a difference. Caleb nodded slowly. Fair enough. They were quiet for a moment. The soft music in the hall continued. Plates were brought and taken away. Neither of them paid much attention to the food. Then Lyra said something that changed the direction of everything. Can I ask you something, Caleb Harris? Sure. If you discovered that someone you trusted was planning to betray everything you loved, what would you do? He did not hesitate. I would stop them. Even if you were alone. Especially if I was alone, he said. Because then nobody else gets hurt. Lyra looked at him for a long time after that. Long enough that it started to feel less like a conversation, and more like an assessment. Like she was measuring something inside him that could not be measured with instruments. Then, very quietly, she said, "I need to show you something." She reached inside her gown and pulled out a small flat device. Thin as paper, she placed it on the table between them and pressed her thumb to its surface. A holographic projection bloomed up from it, soft blue light forming shapes and lines and symbols that slowly resolved into a three-dimensional star map. Caleb leaned inches. At the center of the map was a cluster of stars he did not recognize. But branching outward from it were dozens of pathways, trade routes. He guessed. And along three of those routes, pulsing in slow red light, were markers. "Those are Drenthari military ships," Lyra said softly. "Already in position. Already waiting. My father does not know. His advisors have hidden it from him. The binding ceremony is not a peace agreement." She looked at Caleb directly. "It is a surrender, and it begins in 48 hours. Caleb looked at the red markers on the map. Then he looked at her. "Okay," he said slowly. "So what do we do?" And right there, in the middle of a grand dining hall on a floating space station, a 23-year-old mechanic from Ohio decided to help save an empire. Caleb had exactly zero experience with galactic politics. He had zero experience with imperial intelligence, military strategy, alien civilizations, or anything even close to what Lyra was describing. His most complicated problem before this evening had been a cracked engine block on a 2019 Ford pickup. But something in the way Lyra looked at him made him feel like none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that she needed someone to act, and everyone else around her had chosen to wait. The first thing they needed was proof. Not just the star map. The star map could be dismissed as a malfunction, a misread signal, a forgery. Lyra had already tried to present similar information to her father's counsel once before. They had labeled it emotional speculation. They had patted her hand and sent her back to her quarters. She needed something undeniable. "The Drenthari ambassador," Lyra said, keeping her voice very low. "His name is Lord Skav. He arrived on this station 3 days ago, supposedly for pre-ceremony negotiations. But according to my source, a communications officer I trust, Skav has been sending encrypted transmissions every 6 hours. Not to the Drenthari homeworld, to a relay point at the edge of the sector." "A relay point where?" Caleb asked. "Right here," she pointed to the map. "Right next to the largest cluster of red markers." "So he is reporting to the fleet," Caleb said. "Yes. Giving them updates. Timing coordinates. Confirmation that my father's security forces will be reduced for the ceremony as a gesture of good faith." She paused. "My father announced that reduction himself. A symbolic act of trust. He is proud of it." Caleb closed his eyes briefly. "He is proud of making himself completely vulnerable." "Yes. And Skav is using that information to position his fleet for the perfect moment." "Yes." Caleb opened his eyes. "We need those transmissions." "Yes," Lyra said for the third time. "And the only way to get them is to access Skav's personal communications terminal, which is inside his private quarters on Deck 7. "How secure is it?" "Extremely. Guards. 4 Drenthari personal guards. Rotating shifts. Plus electronic surveillance on every access point." Caleb drummed his fingers on the table once. Just once. Then he stopped. "Is there a maintenance access route to Deck 7? Lyra looked at him carefully. "Possibly. Through the environmental systems. Sub-level conduits run throughout the entire station." Caleb almost smiled. "I spent the last 8 hours crawling through sub-level conduits. I know this station's understructure better than most of the people who work here." Understanding moved across Lyra's face. You could get there without using any official access points. If you can get me, schematic of the environmental system layout. Yes. She studied him for a long moment. You understand what happens if we are caught. You are a human civilian on an alien trade station. There are no protections for you. My father cannot intervene without causing a diplomatic incident. You would be detained indefinitely by Drenthari security. Caleb's thought about Ohio, about his little repair shop that did not exist yet, about his truck and his rent, and the completely ordinary life waiting for him back home. Then he thought about 48 hours, about a fleet sitting in the dark waiting to swallow an empire whole, about a girl who had been telling the truth for years, while everyone around her chose not to listen. Get me the schematic, he said. Lyra pulled the holographic device from the table and made 3 quick gestures across its surface. A new map appeared, glowing green lines running like veins through the body of the station. She pushed it toward him. The environmental hub on sublevel 12 connects directly to the service conduit running beneath Deck 7, she said. There is an access panel behind Terminal Junction 44. I will mark it. A small gold dot appeared on the map. Caleb memorized it in 10 seconds. Old habit. He had always been good with spatial layouts. His boss used to say he had a blueprint for a brain. Right now, that was the most useful thing about him. He stood up from the table. Give me 2 hours, he said. 2 hours and 11 minutes later, Caleb Harris crawled back out of sublevel 12 with grease on his face, a bruised shoulder from a narrow junction corner, and a small encrypted data chip in his front pocket. He had gotten in clean. He had gotten out clean. Nobody had seen him. Nobody had heard him. He was a mechanic. Moving through mechanical spaces without making noise was what he did every single day. Lyra was waiting in a small private corridor off the main dining hall. Her calm expression cracked for just a moment when she saw him. Just a flicker of relief moving across her face before she controlled it again. He held out the chip. She took it with both hands. What followed happened faster than Caleb expected. Lyra had prepared. She had a trusted communications officer standing by. Within 30 minutes, the encrypted transmissions from Lord Scov's terminal had been decoded and verified. The fleet positions, the timing coordinates, the orders, all of it, clear and documented, and impossible to dismiss as speculation or emotion. Lyra sent it directly to her father. Not through the council, not through advisors, directly to the Emperor himself, flagged with her personal security code and a message that said simply, "Look at this before you do anything else." The Emperor looked. What happened in the next 6 hours was something Caleb only heard about in pieces, through Lyra's brief and controlled updates. The binding ceremony was suspended. Lord Scov was detained quietly, without incident, before he could signal his fleet. Imperial security forces were quietly repositioned, without triggering alarm. The Drenthari fleet, receiving no final confirmation signal from Scov, held its position for 12 hours before standing down. No shots fired, no battles, no surrender. An empire saved by a data chip and a mechanic who got lost looking for dinner. Caleb sat in a small observation lounge on the station's outer ring and watched the stars through the wide, curved window. He was still wearing his torn hoodie. He still had grease on his hands. He was drinking something warm that a station attendant had brought him without explanation. It tasted like tea crossed with something he had no name for, and it was the best thing he had ever consumed. The door opened behind him. Lyra sat down in the seat beside him. They were quiet for a moment. "Your father," Caleb said. "Is he going to listen to you more now?" Lyra was quiet for a beat. "He has requested a full private meeting with me for tomorrow morning. First time in 4 years, he has not sent a representative in his place." "That is something," Caleb said. Yes, she agreed. It is. Another silence. Comfortable this time. What happens to you now? She asked. Caleb looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, past distances he could not fully imagine, was Ohio. His truck, his tools, his ordinary, uncomplicated life. I go home, he said. I fix engines. I save up. I open that repair shop eventually. Lyra nodded slowly. You could stay. My father will want to meet you. There would be a formal recognition. A title. Possibly. Resources. Caleb shook his head. Not because it was not tempting, but because he understood something that he had not fully understood before tonight. He had not changed the course of a galactic empire because he was special. He had not done it because of a title or a plan or a destiny someone had written for him. He had done it because he sat still when he should have run, because he listened when he could have dismissed, because he acted when everyone else was waiting for permission. That was not something that needed a title. That was just who he was. He looked at Lyra. You already know what to do, he said quietly. You have always known. You just needed someone to believe you first. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. I think, she said softly, that the wrong table was exactly the right table. Caleb smiled. Outside the window, the stars burned quietly across the dark. Billions of them. Each one a sun. Each one a story. And somewhere among them, an empire was still standing because one ordinary man had simply followed the smell of food and sat down in the wrong chair. Here is the part nobody talks about. After Caleb returned to Earth, 3 things happened quietly. Lord Skav's detention revealed something even deeper, a network of Drenthari informants embedded inside the Emperor's own council. People the Emperor had trusted for decades. The purge of that network took months, and it only began because one girl kept telling the truth and one man chose to listen. The second thing was this. The Emperor's private meeting with Lyra lasted not 1 morning but 3 full days. What changed between them in those 3 days, nobody outside that room was ever told. The third thing. Caleb's repair shop opened 14 months later. A small place. No sign out front yet. But the first vehicle he fixed was not a truck. It arrived in a sealed transport container with a Velari Imperial seal on the side. If this opened your eyes. So here is what this story really taught us. Destiny does not announce itself. It does not arrive with a fanfare or a warning. It arrives looking exactly like wrong turn, a dead communicator, and a very confusing menu. Caleb Harris did not save an empire because he was the chosen one. He saved it because he paid attention. He told the truth, and he did the one thing he actually knew how to do extremely well. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is just being genuinely, completely yourself. Now here is what I want to ask you, and I want you to answer this in the comments right now. If you sat down at the wrong table and met someone who changed your entire life, what would you do? Would you run? Or would you stay? Drop your answer below. I read every single one. If you loved this story, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe so you never miss the next story. And watch the next video right here because the next one is even bigger, even stranger, and even more impossible to stop watching. See you in the next one.